You know, I think the greatest thing I could possibly talk about is what offends people. Hi, everybody. This is Pacific Ocean Asia, as I promised, bringing you more controversy. And I always stop and pause before I make a video and say, should I talk about this? I always ask that question, because it's a question we all need to ask. Is what you believe worth fighting for? Is what you believe something that is absolute truth, worth defending? Or do you just loosely hold views, try to get along with the crowd, try to fit in? For me, I can't. The stakes are too high. I was marked a long time ago. I knew growing up that there was something different about Pacific. I felt it. I knew it. It was reiterated to me over and over and over. I never thought I'd come to the day to say this, but in my locale right now, I've been here 6 years, and I'm a very outgoing person. I know many people. I talk to many people. Many of those people have my number. Once in a while, we go to a movie or dinner or lunch. Sometimes we meet at a spa. But none of those people have my back. We live in a very interesting age. And at 52 years old, we've all been down our roads. When you've been down the road, I've been down. When you've been through 3 marriages, when you've been through having a son who's now an adult, when you lived in Hong Kong, and after living in Hong Kong, you had your eyes wide open to the very country that if a war were to break out on our shores, even me, I would fight for our country, our Constitution, and the values that we hold dear as Americans. But at the same time, just as the famous expression, travel broadens the horizons, opens the mind, I laugh when I hear modern-day liberals claiming to be tolerant and open-minded. It is easy to test the sincerity of that statement. All you have to do is say, I don't believe in global warming. The guffaws, gas, pants, taunting will know no bounds. All you have to do is say, I voted for Donald Trump. Did somebody, you dropped a bomb on me, baby? Oh yeah, you dropped a bomb the minute you said you voted for Trump. Did anybody see the white females after Donald Trump won? Somebody put a video together that is, to me, poetic justice. Shows all the crybaby celebs and the high maintenance, I'm all that on a stick, women crying, sobbing, and boo-hooing. We never saw that in any election in U.S. history, to my knowledge. Granted, I don't have videotape access to all the aftermaths of all the country's presidential elections, but I don't remember ever hearing something like that. I love the arrogance of Barack Obama and Lauer and how many other public media figures. Donald Trump's not going to win. Laughing. Not one of those buffoons came back and said, wow, I was wrong. And not to be deterred, they immediately started attacking the Trump voters. Hillary Clinton wasted no time. It was interesting while the Hispanic community and many from the black community and, of course, the feminist community were screaming and yelling about how awful and racist and evil Donald Trump was. Not one of them wanted to deal with the facts. Nobody wanted to hear anything about Hillary Clinton's Clinton Foundation. Billions of dollars given to her by Muslims, billions of dollars given to her, some of which included $15,000 for campaign contributions by the KKK. I read that on the internet, so if I'm wrong, I apologize. Realizing that not everything you hear on the internet is true. Hillary Clinton, nobody wanted to hear about her discrepancies. Nobody. It's amazing that the most effective tool of the left was TV and the media. We all grew up on it. Most of us ate dinner to it. Once post-World War II came, and suddenly we weren't really fighting anybody anymore, except the Cold War during Russia. But the 60s came, and people went to work for a living. No more did we hear stories of people sailing across the ocean on ships. We stopped hearing stories of heroes. And we settled in for the creation of NFL, the Super Bowl, commercials, Hazel, My Favorite Martian, My Three Sons, Ozzie and Harriet. The TV dinner was invented, and Americans settled into the routine, humdrum, mundane of go to work, go home, turn on the TV, fix your dinner, eat your dinner in front of the TV. We no longer gathered around the family table. We no longer said our prayers and asked the blessing for the meal. When I was a kid, I raced home from Walteria Elementary School in Southern California to watch Speed Racer. Dennis the Menace. Something had changed in America. I grew up on the tail end of the free love, the 60s, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the horrors of the Vietnam political boondoggle. I'm called Generation X. In 1985, when I was head over heels for women and I dated a girl in high school, I attended a Baptist church in Prescott, Arizona. And it was there that God broke through Pacific's head. Told me who I was, told me who he was, and I bowed my heart and knee. I had an intellectual problem regarding God. I knew I was a sinner. That had been drilled into me by an abusive mother. That had been drilled into me by other people. The thing I couldn't reconcile is, if there's a God, how come I can't see him? And our science teacher's telling us that there is evolution. That we came crawling from some primordial slime, that a tadpole emerged from the primordial slime to give birth to walking things. I honestly didn't know what to believe. Until a minister sat me down and said, Pacific, read this. It was a gospel tract talking about Dr. Louis A. Leakey. Every kid growing up in my era knew who he was. I believe he was the one that came out with Cro-Magnon Man. All the fanciful drawings of cavemen. My eyes were open that night after sitting for 3 hours in a youth pastor's office as an impetuous, impulsive track star senior in high school with my Letterman's jacket on. What about the dinosaurs? He calmly produced a leaflet, a pamphlet, a this, and I asked him one question that rang through the rest of my life, even till now. If this is true, why are they not teaching us this in public schools? Well, Pacific, because Satan exists. Satan doesn't want people to believe the truth. I was in my infancy then. I had just come to faith in God that night, so my understanding of the universe and the world was so minuscule. But as I set out and I dug deeper and studied and read the book of Genesis and read the book by Henry Morris, his commentary on Genesis, a scientific and devotional commentary. As I read Apologetics for the Faith, as I read More Than a Carpenter, as I started digging deeper and deeper, I said, it is without a doubt that the existence of Jesus Christ, who walked the earth, who taught, who had disciples, who died and rose again, was indeed a verifiable fact, for God himself had proven his existence to Pacific. When I was in high school, and I'm going to tell you, videos like these are not going to get millions of views. Why would they? But I had friends. I had broke the school record at 9:12 in the 2 mile. I had lettered in varsity. Girls wanted to date me. And as my friend said, Pacific changes girlfriends like he changes socks. I was swimming with popularity, something I had never known. I had always gotten attention. Everybody knew Pacific. He was the squirrel in the class. But when I moved to Prescott, something changed. I gained notoriety for my running. That's why when I started reading this book, it starts out about a man who was raised in Torrance, California, which is where I'm from. Louis Zamperini. This is the book that Angelina Jolie, when she heard this man's story, did a movie on him. True story. I recommend every one of my viewers will read the book Unbroken by Laura Hildebrand. You will not put it down. About the horrors and the atrocities of the Japanese during World War II and how awful and brutal they were. What they did in the Philippines, what they did to Americans in POW camps. It's very enlightening. I think that every millennial needs to sit down, and this should be required reading, and say the next time you open your mouth dropping the F-bomb and talking crap to me and the police and everybody else, tell me, after reading this, do you define yourself as a man? Please. Today's millennials are without a compass. And yet they claim to be that compass. This is not just some old codger talking about the young generation like the past elderly people always looking at us youngsters thinking we're nothing but a bunch of whippersnappers. No. something has changed. Back to Prescott. It was January 1985, and I bowed my head in a pastor's office with tears streaming down my face, not because I was moved by religious fervor, but because something inside me broke. When I was a kid, I vandalized properties. I don't know why I did it. Partly I know why. When I lived in a small mountain town, my mother, who was very harsh, made me go from school to my dad's insurance office. And any of you that know me can tell that, yeah, Michael would do real good sitting in an insurance office. I played with hole punchers and staplers and photocopiers, played with pens, tried to understand how a ballpoint pen worked. That was the first 5 minutes. I finally convinced my dad to say, can I please walk to the creek? I can't sit in here all day long. My dad would play cards with his guy he hired to work alongside him, and this guy would cuss and scream up a storm every time he lost. And my dad would just nervously giggle. And there were houses that were along the creek that were on Forest Service property. I wasn't the only one. There were several of us kids that went traipsing down to the woods along the edge of the creek, and we'd go in those houses and bust the toilet bowls and bust the sinks, and one had a Mork and Mindy staircase, and I quickly dismantled that, and we would find a way to monkey bar up to the upper floor, and we tore that place apart. Light fires in the closet, grab a bucket of water and put it out, pour all the cans of paint down the big floor furnace grate, dumb stuff. But there arose a fear within me that, man, if we got caught for that stuff, and after school, myself and many of the other boys would walk over there with a stack of Playboy magazines and sit upstairs in our newly trashed out clubhouses that we took over and would pore over the pages of boobs and everything else. What was ironic is years later, my mother would compare me to these other students and say, they get A's, they're this, they're this. And one day I said, those kids you mentioned, Mom, they're the same ones that went down to the creek and were smashing up houses right along with moi. There was a place called the Mammoth Grand Motel. In the 70s, it hosted discos for the high schoolers. It was a 4-story building that wasn't built real well, and it had run into, it was condemned by the city. The guy attempted to do a remodel on it. And many of us kids, including the school secretary's 2 stellar daughters, a whole bunch of us one day went and walked from the school, and it was led by my cousin, myself, my sister, and several others said, hey, you got to see this place. And the back end was wide open. We went through that place like a hurricane. I don't remember how many rooms it had. I remember one kid was down in the lobby. They had the key rack, and he kept taking a baseball bat and had the one-way glass where the hotel clerk could see the customer, but the customer couldn't see the hotel clerk, and had the window underneath. And Mark was bashing that thing and couldn't break that glass, and he went into a rage. And I come downstairs. I said, man, for the love of God, what is all this noise? And there's Mark. Couldn't break it. One of my friends set a fire inside a dried out toilet bowl, threw a bunch of tissue in there, let a seat melted. The girls ran through there, smashing doors and breaking things. I found a maid cart loaded with supplies on the 4th floor. I got that thing going 100 miles an hour, let go, and yelled, "Maid service!" It sailed down the hall, hit the window on the other end. The grab bar on the other side stuck out further than the cart, hit the window, pushed the whole window down onto the parking lot below, and there was a Asian restaurant down there, and as the glass tinkled to the lot, all of us said, "Shoot. They're in that restaurant. They're going to hear us. We better get out of here." And we fled the building. We made many trips over there, tearing and thrashing the place, and one day I got caught. My cousin and I were there on the summer. I said, "Come here and check out this place, man." We pushed pinball games off the upper deck. There was a room, and the door was missing, and I muscled these things and watched them go. Yeah. The question is, why did you do this? I was abused. I could never please my mother. But let's ask a deeper question. What about those kids that had seemingly perfect homes, that got straight A's? Why were they doing it? Because that's what kids do. Not all. And I mentioned that to my mother. My cousin and I were messing around and walking along broken glass, and then we heard something. And there were stairwells that came down, kind of like the Titanic, not fancy like that, but one on the left, one on the right, down to a central, and you came down the main stairs and you were facing the lobby and the front entrance doors. He came down one side, I came down the other, and there's a man unlocking the front doors, and we're like, "Oh, crap." We fled upstairs. And then I thought, well, that was dumb. Now we can't get out of here because we're upstairs, and the only way out is down through the lobby, and there he is. My cousin jumped off the 2nd floor. I was too scared. So I listened. I heard footsteps. I went running out the building, and I managed to get out. And this guy came up the hill, and I was like, oh my gosh. He came up, grabbed my arm, and clutched it with a death grip. I said, "You got me, cousin. You better just wait." He marched me back to my house, had words with my mother. My mother just said, I'm sorry. And after he left, we were busted. Nothing ever came of that. The building was condemned, and ultimately it met the fate of the bulldozer. The city said, "We're done with you fooling around. It's done." Didn't make it right. But within me, I carried fear and guilt. Because God gives man a conscience, and I knew I had done something wrong. So when I sat in a pastor's office and he talked about sin, I said, I got that. I've done wrong. I have a cargo ship load of guilt for stuff I smashed and broke and tore up. I think it's ironic that in the ensuing years I would become a school bus driver. I would work with youth, and I would see them tear up bus seats and rip things up, and I would find myself getting so angry, and I laughed one day. I said, yep, in a small way you get to experience in a big way what you used to do, tearing up other people's stuff. But the lie was formed in my parents' mind that these other kids were so stellar, they were so nice, their parents were so well-to-do, and the truth is my mom never even believed. You think that just me and my sister and my cousin were the only one in that building? Natalie and Tori, Mark, we named people that were the who's who of Mammoth Lakes, California, tearing up stuff. One of the kids involved with us, his father was the town's counselor. He was the school counselor. One of his other sons set fire, I'm mixing up the two. There was a school counselor and there was the town counselor. The town counselor, his son was bringing the Playboy books, and we were setting fires in the house and putting them out. The other counselor, his son set a fire on the hillside behind the house I lived in. It didn't touch our house, but they had to bring in slurry bomber planes to put it out. We had to go stay at the condominium that my parents owned up on the upper heights of town in case the fire turned and tore up our neighborhood. And everybody looked at the blackened hillside from Mammoth High School and said, yep. That's the school counselor's son did that. Hey, counselor, what kind of advice do you have for that? Mammoth High School was one troubled place. It's a ski resort. It was 2,500 population then, and the kids came from rich families. We had 2 kids who were the sons of a father who invented Hobie the windsurfing. We had guys that carried nunchucks to school and would stand in the corner with those things. We had a kid who brought a bullwhip to school, and we had a Pandora moth invasion, and he stood outside the back door. The math teacher heard that, went out, grabbed the snake whip from him, grabbed him, and tore him up. You wouldn't believe the stuff I saw. We went to summer school one day, and Mammoth High School students, many of us then middle schoolers, somebody took somebody's bicycle that wasn't locked in the bike rack, tied it to the rope on the end of the flagpole, and ran her up the flagpole. We come out of class, and he says, oh, anybody want to salute the American bicycle? Oh, say, can you see? Oh, yeah. Some of that stuff's funny. Some of it wasn't. They used to give swirlies when I was a kid. A swirly is when they hung you upside down and dipped your head in the toilet while flushing, and sometimes that included chocolate and lemonade ones as well. I don't think I need to explain that. I came very close. The Mammoth High School football team came in the locker room, and they had a thing. If they caught any of the other kids from PE not showering, I don't know why they were so militant on us showering. Maybe they wanted to look at our bodies and vicariously lust. Who knows? But they caught me one day. I didn't shower. One, because I was very self-conscious about my small build against everybody else, and I was not going to shower in those freezing cold showers and make a public spectacle of my nude body in front of a bunch of junior high teenagers, and then the football team comes coming in at 200 pounds. Yeah. I pull my pants on, take off my shorts, throw on my t-shirt, deodorant under my pits, and I was out the door. One day I got caught. They grabbed me, and I was spread-eagled in all directions, grabbing every piece of the stall to avoid getting flushed, grabbed the handrail, grabbed the toilet paper dispenser, and I was yelling, put me down, put me down. Somebody heard a noise. Somebody said, shoot. Principal just walked in. I was dropped on the floor, avoided a toilet flush. I'm laying on the floor trying to get up. In walks Mr. Maruka. Civic, is there any reason you're laying on the floor? And I'm gasping, and I said, I just about got a swirly by the football team, boss. He turns and he laughs, and he says, good thing I walked in here, huh? I said, yes, thank you, sir. Everybody knew I had a reputation. I was a squirrel. I'd sit at the back of class, put my feet up against the other students' desks. They had those sled runners on them, not the 4 posts like modern desks do. And I just slowly push. And before a kid knew it, he was 5 feet out in the middle of the classroom, bent over his homework, and I'd do it so carefully he didn't even know it. And he'd look up, man, Pacific, what are you, Pacific, you got detention at lunch. Oh, goody. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't fit. So I tried to light fuses. I tried to create things that would make people laugh. I tried to get attention in different ways. So in 1985 in a pastor's office, when he talked about sin, I got that. But intellectually, I had some mental barriers to the faith. And it was only years later that I finally learned, like right now I'm sitting on a chair, that even an atheist exercises faith. Every time he goes out his door, he exercises faith that his car's going to start. He exercises faith that he's going to drive from point A to point B without an accident. When people laugh at faith, I laugh back and say, you exercise faith every day. You sat in a chair. You didn't stop and question, is it sturdy enough? Are the bolts holding it together? Does the wood glue work? No, you sit down. But when it comes to faith in God, many people sit there and go, oh, you got to be kidding. But the faith that I have in God is not something that's a pie in the sky by and by. It's a faith that can be defended. And yet when it comes to faith in God, people laugh, people shudder, people mock. And don't get me wrong, I've had many atheist friends over the years that have been respectful and kind to me. I don't want to lump all the atheists in the same camp. But we have what we call the hostile atheist. They dominate the internet with their troll-like comments. Everybody knows who they are. They dog and hound and spew and spray all over people's channels. They exist in every town in America that has an editorial page in the newspaper. We call them the resident atheist. It really perturbs me that somebody put a nativity scene on the front of the Prescott courthouse. This is a violation of the separation of church and state. And they go into convulsions. And even as a newly born converted Christian, I sat there and said, why are they getting so upset about this? In the ensuing years, Pacific takes a stance that even many of my compatriots in the Christian faith don't. I don't do Christmas. I don't do Christmas, and this is not the focus of this video. I read a book called The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop, published 1920. He talks about Babylon and the Catholic Church and how there's very, 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 everything is similar. That the pagan origins and customs that evolved in the Catholic Church are stolen from Babylon. And he mentions in detail Christmas and Easter and all the holidays that have become so traditional in our culture. And there are many good books out today saying, why are Christians celebrating Christmas? There's not anywhere in the Bible that talks about the disciples recognizing Christmas Day. They celebrated the risen Christ. Even if you're an atheist, and I have an atheist friend, he was my boss for many years, he said, you're one of the first Christians I've met that's actually gotten this. With him, I can have more of an intellectual, cerebral conversation. Though we agree to disagree, he's always been polite. He said, I always find it interesting, Pacific, that Christians defend and say Jesus is a reason for the season. He said there's nothing Christian about Christmas at all. And he's absolutely right. And I don't go and browbeat other people and tell them. I just sit quietly in church. Churches that are festooned with wreaths and Christmas carols and sleigh bells, and I just sit in there and go, man, you know, Christians claim to know the truth, but sometimes even they have bought into a bunch of lies. But when it comes to the undeniable evidence that Jesus Christ is God, that he walked on earth, that he rose from the dead, and he's coming back, that's undeniable. And there will be people that mock and laugh, you can't prove it, and you can't disprove it. People come up with everything, that Jesus is just a bunch of pirated stuff from Egyptian culture. And no, it isn't. I challenge everybody to read the book More Than a Carpenter by Josh McDowell. I challenge you to read the book The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. I challenge you to read the Genesis record by Henry Morse. He's now deceased, but he was a hydrologist. He was a scientist. A scientist, a word that the liberals have thrown at Christians and said, well, we believe in science, you believe in fairy tales. Excuse me. If I go by the true definition of the word science, evolution is a fairy tale. Creation is fact. You cannot prove evolution. The only evolution that can be proved is myself. I can evolve in my thinking. I can get better and more articulate and more cerebral. Music can evolve from beating on some branches in the woods to a full-blown orchestra. But as far as us coming from an animal life to a human life, and there's no in-betweens and no missing links, well, that's because they're missing. Because there is none. Because God made a cat, and he made a dog, and he made a lizard, and he made Pacific, and he made you. We're not the top of the food chain in the sense that we're animals and related to them. No, we're not. God made Adam and Eve. God fashioned Adam from the dust of the earth, and he fashioned the woman from one of Adam's ribs. People laugh at that. Oh, you and your cute little snake stories in the garden. And yet all I do is look at humanity. And the snake story is proven over and over and over and over and over. Tell somebody don't do something. Tell somebody that the speed limit is there. Tell a kid not touch the cookies in the cookie jar. What do people do? I'm going to go 80. Why is it normal for man to rebel a rule? Because it goes back to the garden. I always laugh when I see atheists get so full of wrath and rage. If the truth be known, there are atheists that don't believe in freedom of speech. They want Christians to shut up and go away. They want every Bible burned, every church shut down. They don't welcome our constitutional right, the freedom of religion, and the free exercise thereof. Even Pacific supports that. Let Muslims do their thing. Let Mormons believe what they want to believe. I believe in that. I don't agree with them. And God opened my eyes that night. Something happened to Pacific. I went back to Prescott High School the next day, and I didn't go Bible thumping. I didn't walk through the halls and say, everybody needs to be saved. You're all going to hell. I didn't do that. The first thing that disappeared in Pacific is my fear of death evaporated overnight. Nobody told me that would happen. The pastor didn't coach me. There was no preempting. And I'm like, hey, how come I'm not afraid? I was afraid of the Cold War. I grew up in California. We had a plethora of good-sized earthquakes, and both of those things bother me. Russia's going to push the button. We're all going to be nuclear toast. An earthquake's going to happen. The building's going to fall down on my head, and the Pacific's going to be gone. And that was one. The other thing is I picked up the Bible, and I had been reading it before, but I was like, okay, I really don't understand this. And it started just like a light shone. And I've argued this over and over. Those of you listening to YouTube that are not Christians, you may be thinking, what is this guy talking about? 1 Corinthians. For those of you that don't know, that's a book in the New Testament. 1st and 2nd Corinthians. The opening chapters of 1 Corinthians, it says, the natural man comprehendeth not the things of God. Let me break that down. You that are unsaved, you are not converted to Christianity. You may believe in God, but you haven't had a personal meeting with the living Christ. You cannot understand God's word. It uses the term spiritually discerned. You are blind. Only the Holy Spirit, once you acknowledge your need for him, only the Holy Spirit can open your eyes to understand his book. And what bothers me about today's generation is the church has been infected by feminism. It's been infected by liberalism. It has been infected by materialism. And so many preachers today are catering from a materialistic, lustful, self-preserving financial portfolio basis. Joel Osteen, Joyce Meyer, Benny Hinn, Kenneth Copeland, all these guys making huge exorbitant salaries and not even blushing at the wanton extravagance of their disgusting lifestyles that don't anything model the disciples. Paul was a tent maker. He worked with his own hands that he would be a burden to no one. And at the same time he worked with his own hands, he labored as a pastor does, as a shepherd for the churches, writing many of the New Testament epistles. That even today's Christians in the televangelist setting don't model Jesus and the disciples. Jesus said, foxes have holes, birds and nests have air, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Today's preachers walk with a swagger and an attitude and a Learjet. I don't care what anybody says. It's wrong. One of the qualifications for an overseer in 1 Timothy and 2 Timothy, they talk about elders and bishops, overseers, deacons. And one of them is must not be a lover of money. Creflo Dollar, they're throwing money at him on the stage. The modern day buffoonery of the modern day TV Christianity persona. It amazes me how many Americans make Christianity look bad by the sheer numbers of naive, dumb, anti-intellectual people who don't bother to study the Bible deeply, and they follow these people. Some women have drained their entire bank accounts for Mr. Copeland, for Mr. Hinn, while sitting in poverty, believing a lie. If you plant this seed into my ministry, it will return to you 1,000-fold. Yeah, I got a bridge in Brooklyn for sale. And yet this goes on and on and on. We've heard the term in today's churches, 7-11 courses, the same 11 words sung 7 times. I was even at my own church, and I love the preaching, but the music leaves me wanting. We repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat the same trite stuff. And I go, the young generation complained about the old hymns. They're too wordy. And it's funny, I look back on the hymns. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, even so it is well with my soul. A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing. They're not repetitive. They're deep. And in a day and age where everything has become so superficial, I find myself lacking the security and comfort that I would get from singing a good, grand hymn that is rich with meaning compared to today's trite, repetitive courses, complete with loud electric guitar and music that's not even good from a secular sense. Loud, rangy guitar, drums. All you hear is the noise on the stage, and you don't hear the singing, except one guy who's blow-sipping on the mic. An emotional, euphoric, where a bunch of silly white women clap to this cheesy stuff, and they get into their little SUV, which is lined with plastic, and you hear the plastic beat as they're leaving the parking lot, and I go, what a cheap age. They don't like the hymns. They don't like the solid. They don't like the in-depth. And it dawned on me, even our Christian culture and our secular culture likes the superficial light, L-I-T-E. You look at the commercials, and they've taught us. You got some cheesy, flaky woman with a fake plastic grin. Try this new yogurt. It's light, L-I-T-E, ding. And this is our cheesy culture. It seems that a lot of the internet has been taken over by the liberal think tanks, the rabid atheist. And when I say rabid atheist, I'm not talking about all atheists. For those of you that have tuned into my channel, we can agree to disagree, but I'm talking about the militant. I'm going to scream and yell about that nativity scene. The difference between me and most Christians is that the removal of a nativity scene in a courthouse doesn't shake me. I'm not into religious artifacts. My God transcends that. My God isn't wrapped up in a faux manger scene on a courthouse. My God is the creator of the universe. My God is bigger than that junk on a courthouse lawn. The atheist hasn't taken my Bible. The atheist hasn't taken the Holy Spirit out of me. The atheist cannot take away my relationship with God, cannot take away my ability to pray to Him. Why are we fighting over trifles in American society? And you look at the evidence of Christians wringing their hands. Look at what they're doing. They don't want a nativity scene on it. And I sit there and go, well, you guys mature and grow up. Put your Christmas tree in the fire, burn the thing down, and get over yourself. Start proving to the atheist world your God's bigger than this trite garbage, plastic lit up dolls on a courthouse that don't even look like Jesus. Jesus Christ looks like some Anglo-Saxon wasp. We don't know what he looked like. And even Christians seem to violate that commandment of God, thou shalt not make a likeness. But we draw and paint pictures of the supposed Jesus. Nobody knows what he looks like. The Bible describes him as comely, and the women did not desire him. In other words, he wasn't a handsome hunk. He came in a body where the focal point was to be what was coming out of his mouth, the teachings, not him and his body. Jesus emphasized the body's passing away. So I go back to Prescott High School. I'm now born again. I'm saved. Oh, that terrible word. He's one of them born again Christians. Oh, the feminists and the liberals love us. They just love us. They love us about as much as I like a woman sweaty with hairy armpits coming towards me wanting to hug me, and I'm going, oh man, I'm out of here. Me. Roadrunner. I didn't understand what was happening. I just knew something had changed. The fear of death went away. I had this assurance that I had eternal life. I understood the Bible. And I sat in the Prescott High School library with the round table. Native American that was involved in DMLA, some white guys, we'd all sit there and talk about stuff. And I was never really vocal before that. I just sat and listened and laughed that they disagree with each other on this. But when I became a Christian, I was sitting there and they were saying something, and for the first time I looked up and I said, that's not right. All 8 of them looked at me, Mikey, well, what's gotten into you? I said, what do you mean what's gotten into me? What you're saying isn't right. Oh, man, did you get religion? I said, I didn't get religion. I got saved. Oh, my gosh. Oh, Mikey, what happened to you? And they grab their textbooks and they get up and walk off. I lost every one of my friends my senior year. There was a girl named Wendy who overheard me discussing with them one day. After they all got up and fled, she says, I don't know who you are, but that is the most awesome speech I've ever heard of anybody, and I've never heard it in this school. She goes, I go to the Potter's house across the street. I'm a Christian, and I can't believe how on fire for God you are. And I'm just like, who is this woman? I would meet up with her again in my 20s, and we'd go and play cards together and listen to Christian music. That was my big kick back then. Now I could care less for the stuff. Unfortunately, I had to learn that even in Christianity that there's churches that get off on tangents and some false teachings, that though we may all believe in Christ and be saved, that there's aberrant teachings out there. But it didn't take me long to realize my popularity left. I left my senior year of high school without a friend in the world. I went to my graduation. I had left my parents. I went to my graduation. It was a non-event. I went out into the world and I went to work in factories, and I would sit there and listen to people and the stuff they were saying, and it just became clear to me, man, I never really realized I was lost. And now I'm beginning to realize humanity's lost. I listen to what they talk about. I listen to them looking forward to beer 30. I listen to what comes out of their mouth, and I'm going, man. But what has really amazed me in the last few years is watching this liberal left, this monster, this menacing beast from the deep rear up its ugly head. The last election, The hatred was coming not from the right, but from the left. The tolerant, the open-minded ones, screaming and yelling because some of us don't believe in global warming. The ignorance of people. We've recorded weather for about 150 years. And if we supposedly weren't around for billions of years, how in the world do we know what was happening 300 years ago? Unless it was written down. But the thing that bothers me is people just believe it because somebody beats the drum long enough. If you tell a lie long enough, pretty soon people believe it's true. That's a given fact. Checking the time here. To the atheist that gets so angry, why does a nativity scene on a courthouse bother you so much? If God is a lie and there is no God, do you exhibit the same angst to people who believe in superstitions like, oh, Friday the 13th brings bad luck? No, you don't say a word about it. I don't say a word about it. It's foolishness. Pacific is not consumed with this, oh my gosh, we need to ban this Friday the 13th and rabbit's feet and all this foolishness. No, I consider it what it is, foolishness. Friday the 13th is just another day. I know for a fact, and I have seen and I've lived long enough, that there's something called conviction. That when you speak the truth, when I or anybody else speaks the truth, somebody who doesn't like the truth is going to get cut to the heart. They're going to get angry. And when angry people arise, the next thing they're going to do is attack. When you rile an animal, when you rile a human, same thing. When a person is uncomfortable with something that's hitting right deep in here and forcing them to take a look at themselves, most people don't take a look at themselves. They react. They project, and they get wrath-filled. It's called conviction. It's something that God built in us. It's something that the enemy works and moves in. The enemy convinces the individual, this guy, you need to shut him down. I love the battle hymn of the Republic. One of the lines is, his truth is marching on. People have tried to shut up the Word of God. They've tried to shut up preachers. The Catholic Church tried to kill Protestant preachers who stood up and liberated people with the producing of an English Bible. That flew in the face of Roman Catholicism that wanted everything in Latin so that the priest could read little snippets and manipulate the Word of God to their favor. They didn't want the people having a copy of the Bible and reading it on their own. I remember clearly Prescott High School, a girl named Stacy who I had a crush on before. I was outside the Prescott High lunchroom sitting on a picnic table and she came up, what are you reading? I said, the Bible. She goes, oh really? What are you reading? I said, Revelation. She looked at me, she goes, yeah, my priest told us we're not to read the Bible. I looked at her and I said, what? She goes, yeah, she said, it's very hard to understand, so let him read it to us. Wow. Sounds like that Catholic priest believes in sheeple. Anybody that tells you the Bible's too hard to understand and you shouldn't read it, you need to run from that person. The Bible is God's gift to humankind. And while everybody's running around obsessed with this or that, God is still trying to get your attention, my attention, all of our all's attention, because he wants a relationship with us because he loves people. He loves people more than people love people. And even Pacific at his best. Human though I am, can say, I don't like that woman and I don't like that man. And God's still working on me to have the love of God for them. Christianity is not about maintaining perfection in some sort of an image. Christianity is being real. Christianity is keeping it real. Christianity is talking from the heart. Too many Christians in America act like we need to do like a salesman. We're not salesmen. We're not selling a product. Jesus Christ is not for sale. He is not a marketable thing. And the church, the modern church in America, has marketed Christianity like it's a good. I look at church marquees. I drove my bus one day and I saw the church, the name, and underneath when they put the little letters in the behind the closed little doors and their little bulletin thing out front. We have awesome worship. We don't shush people in here. Another one I saw, blended worship. Blended? I mean, I think of this big mixing bowl and stuff going in, and I'm going, that's not an image I like to hear in a church. Blended. No, Jesus Christ is a divider. Jesus Christ said, if a man love his mother or father more than me, he is not worthy of me. Jesus Christ said, I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. A mother will be against her own daughter, father against his own son. A man's own enemies will be the members of his own household. Many people trip over that and go, what is that? I'll tell you what it means. That when you become a Christian, that close tie that you had with your family, your wife, your friends that aren't Christians, that's just suddenly been shattered. I know a story of a man, true story. He was a good friend of mine. He was flaming homosexual. In 1989, he came to saving faith. I met this man when I was walking along the edge of Lake Superior in Duluth. He told me he was a gay person. He came to church with me, and he admitted to me that he was married to a woman. And he'd abused her, he was an alcoholic, and he smashed things. He was obsessive compulsive. He built this beautiful house with architectural salvage. The guy was amazing in his ability to create. When the wife saw the change in him, they invited me for dinner. And the wife glowed. I don't know who you are, but my husband's a different man. Thank you. I said, don't thank me. That's God. But it wasn't long before something happened in her. He started reading the Bible more. He started playing the Christian music station. It was nice stuff. It was preaching. She came downstairs one day and said, I'm getting tired of you listening to all this stuff. And she was a church goer. I think she went to the, what the heck are they, ecumenical, or no, there were two kinds of Lutherans. There's Missouri Synod and the ELCA, and she went to the one that was more liberal, where she didn't get exposed to the truth. She came to him one day and in a fury said, I'd rather have you back the way you were, drunk and practicing homosexuality, than what you become. And he looked at her as he put his Bible down and says, are you serious? I used to beat you. I used to sleep with my male lovers in the living room in this house in front of you, and you want me to go back to that? He told me that story. His wife turned on me. She hated me. She called me obnoxious. I wrote her a letter one day. I said, I'm not obnoxious. You just don't like the truth. I couldn't believe what I had heard and witnessed. That some people are such enemies of God, they'd rather have you living like the devil, tormenting them, than believing the truth and becoming a person of peace, trying to follow God. Things became crystal clear as I got older, that if you really are a Christian and you're trying, not perfectly, but trying to live for God, you will be a loner. I mean, when I first got saved, oh, you're a Christian? Cool. Here's a fish symbol to put on the back of your truck. I mean, it was a cheesy kind of camaraderie. Oh, you like Mylon Lefevre? You like DeGarmo and Key? You like Amy Grant? Oh, yeah, we're all part of the club. But as I got older and I matured in the faith and I moved away from the infancy of my Christianhood, suddenly I realized when you try to get closer to God, you try to dig deeper in truth, you're looked at as a weirdo. You're looked at as a John the Baptist dressed in camel's hair and eating wild locusts and honey. Who's that freak? I'm okay with that. I'm more settled in the faith because I know that this world, you look at our media, you look at what they do with Hollywood, you look at what they do with Matt Lauer and these news people. I hate to tell you this, viewers, but I get more message out of some of the music created by stoners than I do today's modern church insipid, cheesy, flaky stuff that doesn't even sound good. Anybody heard the song by Jim Morrison of The Doors? People are strange when you're a stranger. When you're strange, people remember your name. You know why he wrote that? His father was in the service, so they moved and moved and moved and moved, and he never got to form intimate relationships. Jim Morrison was a sad life. He OD'd on drugs. A lot of his music was written by the devil. He admitted it. Something took over and his hands started writing. I mean, it's interesting if you do a study on music. The classical piece, Thus Spake Zoroaster, the composer of that said, I don't know what happened to me. I have my pen and my pen started moving on its own. There's a term for that, and I fail to remember what it is, but that's that piece. It's that dun, 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 dun. Thus spake Zoroaster. Well, Zoroaster's false religion. People don't want to believe. They laugh at the idea of a devil. Of course there's a devil. And the devil doesn't want you to believe, and the devil doesn't want you to become saved. And the devil has his right-hand tool in the United States of America called today's media. I don't care if people laugh and mock me for that. It is the dead dog truth. CNN, I thought when we were kids we were taught not to lie. CNN and the modern news media sees no problem with lying. They're unashamed. Why is that? Because to them it's okay. The end justifies the means. Situational ethics. Donald Trump's evil. We got to get him out of office. We're going to impeach him. Impeach him for what? I don't know, but we're going to impeach him. When I say I voted for Donald Trump, people just jump all over me. Wow, I can't believe. I didn't say he was perfect. But I sure as heck am not going to vote for Hillary. She's a basket case. She couldn't even stand up and be a woman and be a good sport. She couldn't shake Donald's hand. She ran and hid. She went into a room and cussed and yelled and slammed doors and had a meltdown. I love the smug self-assuredness of the liberal left. Donald Trump's not going to be president. Even I was shocked the night of the election. I stood up. I was up briefly because I go to bed early for my job, and Bing, B-I-N-G, which is a search engine, I looked, 89% projected approval of Hillary winning. That stayed there all night long. Before I went to bed, I noticed 3 states were already for Trump. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? I went to bed that night with a horrific feeling. I said, you know, God, if Hillary Clinton wins, I know we're not a Christian nation, but if she wins, she will destroy this country so fast. I woke up the next morning. I'd opened my Facebook, and one of my good friends from Virginia, the East Coast, said, sorry, you're all butthurt. Get over it. You lost. I was like, what? I pulled up a map of the election. Donald Trump wins the election. I looked at the map. I said, you've got to be kidding me. I had made a video on Facebook and I said, he's not going to win and here's why. The people that voted for Barack Obama 2 terms in a row, they're becoming huge in number because they pull in the LGBT, the feminists, the Hispanics, the illegal mindset, the Muslims, the refugees coming from other countries. The Democrats have been pimping all these groups to garner support for their white, elitist lifestyles and living in the Hamptons. Most liberals don't pull their heads out of their proverbial arse and see that. The Democrats are about self-preservation and lining and padding their wallets and their retirements and their investment accounts. YouTube, Google, Facebook. These are not conservative forums. They were good tools, but they were started and backed by predominantly liberals. Mr. Zuckerberg is a liberal. Mr. Zuckerberg censors whatever he wants to censor. Mr. Zuckerberg has big money. Mr. Zuckerberg is a multi-billionaire. And most people willingly put themselves all over Facebook when Mr. Zuckerberg, it is a known fact, the CIA has given him money because it is the greatest information collecting resource in America today. Women and men. In fact, the IRS has looked at people's Facebooks to go after them in a court of law. Look, Billy showed his new boat. Billy showed this. Billy showed that. The IRS now owns a boat and a mansion that Billy posted on Facebook. You think I'm kidding? Do your research. Did you know Facebook in 1 year was responsible for 3,000 divorces? Yep. Because Facebook now does typing for you. You start to type in something and it finishes a sentence. It's like, that's not what I wanted to put. How many of you have seen that? Facebook also likes to dig up your past. Oh, you went to Prescott High School? Here's some people we went to school with. Oh, great. All my ex-girlfriends are paraded in my... Oh, my gosh, Pacific looks good. I wonder if he's single. Yeah, I'm single, but I'm not interested in you, babe. Social media is taking you in a direction, folks. You're taking off your bra and panties and exposing yourself to the CIA, to Mr. Zuckerberg, and these women in America that say, you don't know me. Oh, we know you. We see what you post all the time. You're easily defined. I feel free since I'm off of there. I do. But the left is not tolerant and open-minded. That is a lie. Tell them that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and life, and see how tolerant they are of that. They're the ones that came up with the silly bumper sticker that says coexist. Each one of those letters is a symbol of all of the other religions of the world. The ignorance, the spiritually illiterateness of Americans shows on the back of almost every SUV in Denver, Colorado that I see sporting that sticker. I'm going, Islam and true Christian faith cannot coexist because Allah says he's the one and Jesus Christ says he's the one who is truth. I'm not going to get into a tit-for-tat religion versus other religions. One thing I can say with definitive authority is that all other religions are found wanting. Their follower, their leader did not rise from the dead. Their leader did not promise them eternal life. Their leader did not promise them forgiveness of sins. Allah tells his followers, his radical extremist followers, that if you suicide bomb a building, you'll get 70 virgins. So your God is a God of illicit sex. That's awesome. Even though I struggle with lust, and many of us, if we're honest, struggle with lust of whatever varying kinds, the Bible tells us abstain from fleshly lust that war against your soul. It tells us to abstain. And if we're honest, many of us don't abstain. But you've got a God over here, Allah, that says, oh, you can have your fill of vagina in heaven. You get 70 of them. The Mormons teach that the women will be eternally pregnant. I don't know how any thinking American women could get behind a religion like that. Ask any woman how fun it was to be pregnant during child delivery and morning sickness, and they'll tell you, you know what? I love to have my child, but the pregnancy, yuck, I hate it. And now you're going to tell women in Mormondom that they're going to be eternally pregnant? Sounds like a chauvinistic man-based religion. Jesus Christ never said such a thing. So people want to laugh at Christianity. I'm secure. I'm secure in my belief that Jesus Christ is who he said he was. I'm secure in my belief that when I look at liberalism, they're laughable. They're hypocritical. And when you look at the absolute juvenile tactics that they've employed by using the media as a tool of propaganda, lying, and manipulation, while CNN's views have plummeted, while the New York Times, which is the most liberal piece of printed toilet paper out there, the New York Times is a flaming joke. And the fact that people believe in that stuff is just it's bodacious. And then they'll laugh at Christianity. Some people want to talk about a hole in the ozone instead of about the hole in their own heads. And every time a Prius pulls in front of me, I don't know if there's something wrong with the accelerator pedal, but they can't seem to go the speed limit. They go 20 under. They go, oh yeah, that's a great car to preserve the environment in. People today, the audacity to think that you're going to save the planet, that you suddenly evolved and came along and you're going to save the planet that you did not create, that is laughable. You're going to save the planet. What if God allowed a big meteorite or an asteroid to just slam into this earth and knock it silly? You're going to save it, huh? Kickball. There goes the earth. Now, at the core of all of this liberal tripe is man's rebellion. I don't want to believe in God, or I'll believe in a God that I choose in my mind. Most Americans make a God in their own image. The liberals want to believe in a welfare God, in a government God. Feminists want to believe that women are gods. Feminists want to believe that men are devils, that men are evil. The bottom line of every core belief is let's rebel the established status quo that God set in place in eternity. Gay marriage is a rebelling of God creating Adam and Eve and saying, be fruitful and multiply. And I've been very sensitive about the subject. I understand same-sex desires. I understand why two women can be attracted to two women or two men can be attracted to men. It doesn't make it right. Many people, if they're honest, have struggled with heterosexual desires and same-sex desires. They're all lumped in the same category by God, sin. And that word really gets people mad. I always tell people, if something isn't true, if God doesn't exist, why do you spend so much of your energy and time wrath-filled? When somebody puts a nativity scene or somebody utters a prayer at a public forum, walk out of the room and go on and laugh. I came into contact with a coworker recently who's going through a very troublesome time with her husband. She's started to file divorce, and her husband is a flat earth theorist. She said, would you talk to him? I said, no, absolutely not. When I was on Facebook, she was talking to me one night in Instant Messenger, and he crashed in and said, and I first thought I was talking to her, and then it dawned on me, oh, he must have. I said, it seems like somebody's invaded your Facebook. I'm going to block you right now. I went to work the next morning. She goes, I'm glad you did that. Yeah, I was there, and he pushed me out of the way and started arguing with you. And I just said, you know what, dude? Let's put your flat earth theory to the test. You start in Denver, go north, south, east, or west in a perfectly straight line, and keep going, and you'll come back to Denver again. If it's flat earth, you're going to run to an edge somewhere and drop off of it. There are people in America that grew up with such access to such wonderful information that believe such hooey that it amazes me. And what really bothers me is the same can be said about so many churches in America that teach their parishioners so much BS. and stuff that is not only not biblical, but it is just laughable. Has anybody looked at the Book of Mormon? Has anybody read that? I mean, I'm not even going to take the time to talk about the various cults. South Park even did a thing mocking the Book of Mormon, and they were accurate in everything they said. There was a time in this country, in the 40s, the 50s, that you tell a man or a woman about God and they'd say, you know, I know what you're saying is right, but I'm not ready for that right now. When people cussed in the presence of somebody else who was a Christian and say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I shouldn't have said that. Now today, they're up in your face, laughing, taunting, mocking. And people get mad when I say this. You can tell who the followers of Satan are. They're the ones that mock people of truth. They're the ones that mock people who speak the truth. They're the ones who laugh, deride, name call, put down their looks, put down everything. Instead of giving an argument why their view is false, they attack in childish fashion. We see this with the Democrats all the time. Madonna getting up, the whole, sorry to use the word, pussy march with a pussy hat. I feel like blowing up the White House. Oh, we're off on an emotional tangent. What is your problem with Donald Trump, Madonna? Lay it out. The same old drumbeat, he's racist. Racist because he wants to deal with illegal immigration. You listen to the same speeches by Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. They said the same darn thing, and the Democrats didn't even say one objection. The term I heard by many people, he's not presidential. Oh, you mean he doesn't play the fake game? I used to be that way. Somebody'd say something, I'm like, wow, that was just classless. But as I get older, I'd rather have somebody who's very honest with what comes out of their mouth than a suit and tie on Sunday morning. How are you doing? I'm doing well. That is so fake. It is so insincere. And if that is modeling of Christianity and the truth, I want nothing to do with it. One of the things I've noticed in American culture that is totally disappearing is this right here. Heart. You see it a lot in our female culture. People don't want to keep it real. They like the light, the superficial. Oh, let's go work out. Oh, let's look at that new SUV. Let's go to Starbucks. You start getting deep with people in American culture, they're going to leave you. You start getting beyond the surface with people, they're going to run. Our American media has helped create that environment. I talked a little bit about my faith. I talked a little bit about my conversion for a reason. I don't expect this video to get millions of views. It won't. I'm just a simple man who struggles, who has a struggle with temptation just like everybody else. But one thing that has changed in me is I know that Jesus Christ is truth. And I see the evidence of that proven to me on a daily basis with people's anger, rage, and hatred. I go, boy, if this isn't true, what is all the wrath about? I thought the liberal left was tolerant. I thought they were open-minded. It's interesting, I heard on Rush Limbaugh the other day that the Democrats were actually saying about Donald Trump when he called Kim Jong-un Rocket Boy, or Rocket Man, or whatever. The liberal left said that's insensitive to call the leader of another country. Insensitive? Does anybody know what Kim Jong did to a woman? Killed her. Family relatives, killed them. How come the liberals didn't stand up and scream and yell about the abuse of people's human rights, leaving most of his people in his populace starving? How come the liberals aren't talking about that? I thought they were about the social welfare of people. No, their hatred of Trump is so strong they'd rather give adulation to Kim Jong-un and scream and yell about Trump. The hypocrisy of the left knows no bounds. And this is going to go on. You're not going to appease these liberal left people. You're not going to get Nancy Pelosi to have a conversion experience where she wakes up and has an aha moment about the truth. Because they're following the father of lies. CNN is exhibiting the behavior of Satan, the father of lies. That's what the Bible calls Satan. CNN is fake news. CNN doesn't tell the truth. CNN is manipulating facts. I have no respect for that, and I don't need to. Their viewership has plummeted, and they're still not pulling their heads out of their butts. I've lived long enough. I've been bullied, I've been harassed, I've been threatened, I've had people laugh, I've had people make a comment. It was funny. I'm going to talk about a personal anecdote, which I do from time to time, so bear with me. I was in my workplace, and a new girl had started. She was Hispanic, chubby, pudgy, thinks she's all that on a stick, and she's got a boyfriend because there's enough desperate men out here. And she made a dig at me one day, and I was talking I was excited, and me and another couple of people were joking around about something, and she goes, "He's on something." I walked over and I said, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "You're on something." I said, "No, I don't do drugs. I'm not on something." And I said, "You want to tell me what that?" She goes, "I didn't say you were drugs." I said, "You said I was on something. Well, if you don't know what it means," I said, "You want to get rude with me, I'll go to the office and have a talk with the boss. You just started here, and you need to learn that you cannot just mouth off and make rude comments like that." And she continued to be arrogant and rude. One day she come in a pink, the pink brand, a pink hoodie. She lifted up her arms, black and black. Everything in Pacific wanted to say, for somebody who made a comment about me being on something, I love the hoodie with the pit stains that you wear every day and don't seem to notice that most women would be appalled if they saw that. They'd be like, I'm either going to wash it or throw it in the trash. She wears it regularly, and I noted somebody else. I said, watch when she lifts her arm over there. And somebody said, I said, yeah, that's the one who thinks she's all that on a stick. This is our world today, folks. We have a whole lot of people like that. They don't see the truth about themselves, but they think that they're goddesses. I say this, I focus on a lot of women because, and I can blame a lot of men too. They think because of their college degree or that they bought this hoopty that they drive that they're something. When I became a Christian, as I get older, I look at that and I just shake my head and go, really? No. Sorry, dude. They're blind. Blind people think that they can see. An obese woman who has pit stains thinks she's hot. Because unfortunately, there's a bunch of men that have told her that. That's what's given birth to this feminism, is other women coddling each other and saying, you go, girl, girl power. I saw a bumper sticker on a Ford Ranger the other day. It was next to me in traffic. Silly boys, trucks are for girls. Oh my gosh, really? Women have lost their frickin' minds in this culture. Even Rush Limbaugh's commenting on this feminism. And what are these feminist women contributing to society? Destruction. They can claim to be open-minded, intolerant, and all about wage discrepancy and equality. Listen to the way they talk about men and tell me how equal that is. Their hatred and contempt and their chauvinistic, even a form of racism against the white male is off the chain. And our government doesn't do a thing about that. That if our government would wake up to equal opportunity employer, they would shut down all women's studies classing and curricula in all universities and say, we're not allowing this. This is discriminatory. It is okay in America to discriminate against white males. And I key in on white males. I have a lot to say about white males too. A lot of white males are jerks. But why is it open season on white males? You stand up and say anything truthful about a woman, you'd better off dealing with Attila the Hun or the Wrath of Khan than that. They're not open-minded. They're not tolerant. They have an agenda, and they have an agenda for dominance. And back to what I was saying about boys being taught by mostly female public school teachers. They're ridiculed, they're put down, they're attacked for being a guy. That women want to make them into little girls. And we're seeing the fruits of this. We're seeing all this transgender stuff. We're seeing emo boys that wear the little gauges and their little stupid things, and they dye their hair and they're acting like little girls. Oh, and they're going to get mad that I just said that. I don't care. You're offensive. You're offensive. You're always offensive. You have no respect for the older. You have no respect for anything of value, and you want to get up in our face with your F-bombs. I'm sick of it. You emo people need to grow up and put on your big boy pants and be a man. The problem with our generation, it hasn't been under attack. They're attacking us, but it hasn't been in a war. It hasn't been in a depression where they hurt. And put all these emo punks in a concentration camp and make them prisoners of wars, and then they can get back to me about their little butthurt hardships growing up in an affluent society. No, our world's upside down, folks. And the older I get, and the more I watch the way people behave and what's going on, aside from the fact that I struggle and am imperfect, one thing that stands head and shoulders above everything else, this just verifies and proves that the Bible is true, that what God said is true. It just proves to me that science is wrongly using the term science today. They've hijacked the word science to pigeonhole an atheistic, godless agenda called evolution that's devoid of God, that's devoid of absolutes, and we're seeing the fruit of that with today's millennials. Why would you have respect for other people if there is no God and there's no absolutes? In the 70s, 60s, and 70s, situational ethics ran supreme. And the liberal left is adopting the Karl Marx philosophy and the communist Stalinism approach. And the liberals aren't dumb. You control the media. You have KGB Soviet-controlled television. And the U.S. isn't that far different than the old Soviet era. We've got news now that's telling you what they want you to hear. That's pretty scary. It's pretty scary when the entertainment industry is dominated with liberals. And they're using movies that should be a place to relax, to veg, to unwind, and get lost in a good show, is now an agenda. Global warming. Men are stupid. Women are supreme. I can wear hairy armpits now. I'm a star, and I'm going to rebel that notion of clean, smooth underarms because I'm a liberated woman. Oh, yeah, well, you're liberated, all right. I'll cut you free. I don't want to be anywhere near you. I'll give you your freedom. You stink. You got hairy underarms. That's gross. Yes, this is the world we live in today. Women are very easily led astray in our culture. And when they say they're enlightened, they say it with a clenched jaw. Sorry, honey. That doesn't symbolize or model freedom to me at all. I'm free. I'm free because God set me free. I'm free to speak my mind. Put me into jail, I'm still going to speak. Yeah. what to title this video. I still don't even know what to title it. But this is where we're at, folks. The liberal left is stupid in many ways. They didn't expect the backlash in the last election that a bunch of Americans are tired of this stuff. They're tired of the lies of the so-called Affordable Health Care Act. They're tired of the lies that Martin Luther King, if he was alive today, would have said that Barack Obama was not voted in for the content of his character, but he was voted in for the color of his skin. And he would chastise and rebuke this generation for doing that. I believe in Martin Luther King's speech. I totally concur with it. Racism should be over. Because if I, as a Christian, believe we came from Adam and Eve, then nobody's superior. That goes for the feminists. Nobody's superior. But everybody likes to put themselves up like they're all that on a stick, men and women. It's sad. Jesus Christ levels everybody. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Boom! Who do you think you are? That's where I get my impetus to talk the way I'm talking. I believe in the Constitution that all men were created equal. I believe in that. We're all equally sinners. I don't care if you're hot. I don't care if you're on the front of Cosmo magazine. I don't care who you are. You're still a sinner. And the greatest woman or the greatest man still sits on a toilet and some yucky, nasty stuff comes out between their legs when they go to the potty. We forget that. Even Pacific sits on the toilet and excretes waste. That should keep us all humble, right? Unfortunately, some people forget the reality of who they are. It wasn't too long ago that two women had the thing one cup and they decided to eat each other's fecal matter. Please, for the love of God, tell me how that's enlightened. If evolution is true, then why are manners getting worse? Why are two women eating poo-poo together? Evolution is false. If you look at the way people are treating each other and behaving today, according to evolutionists, we're rising upward. No, that's simply not true. We're proving the second law of thermodynamics, that everything is winding down. There's death and decay. The second law of thermodynamics proves that evolution is not true. The second law of thermodynamics proves that God, when he said in the garden, you can eat from any tree in the garden, except that one. In the day that if you eat it, you shall surely die. The Hebrew says, dying thou shalt surely die. When we sinned, we separated ourselves from God. That's one. When we sinned, we suddenly had a life expectancy ending. We could not live forever. That's why in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, in the opening first 10 chapters, you have women and men living 800-900 years. Methuselah lived to be, 960 years? And people go, what? That's impossible. No, it wasn't. Ponce de Leon looked for the fountain of youth, and Florida never found it. The fountain of youth was to be found in obeying God and doing what he said. We would have lived forever. But because we didn't, sin is the virus that infected the hard drive of all of creation. Animals attack each other. Pine beetles eat pine trees and waste them. Dutch elm disease, cancer, AIDS, all these different things afflict us, guaranteeing our demise. So the only hope for mankind at the close of this video is eternal life. Quit looking for the fountain of youth. Go to the fountain of life. Jesus, he shed his blood on the cross for the forgiveness of your sins. And if you think you don't sin, you are truly ignorant and you are truly blind. I don't care how good looking you are. I don't care how many Emmys, Grammys, Oscars you have won or Dove Awards. You're a sinner. The trolls on the internet, the people that wag and scream and yell and go on and on are proving and bearing this out by their wretched behaviors and responses and hate and uncouthness. I find it interesting today that even myself and others have been on the other side of mounted attacks for simply exercising our free right to free speech, not making threats, not harassing, but just saying what's in our heart. We have been the focus of vitriol, rage, hate, threats, revenge. Those people prove the existence of God. They prove the existence of Satan, and they prove the existence of sin and evil in the world. Anybody that tells you you don't have a right to free speech, that person is in darkness. I may disagree with a liberal, but they also have the right to free speech. The atheist has the right to free speech. The Muslim has the right to free speech. Whether I agree with their tenets, their faith, their creed, doesn't matter. They have the right to free speech. Free speech should not include threatening and retaliation and shouting down people. Bullying tactics are not allowed or welcome. But the liberal left has been doing this for a long time. Liberals need to wake up to their hypocrisy. Liberals need to wake up. Jesus Christ said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Feminism does not set you free. Marrying your same-sex partner doesn't set you free. Imbibing in all the drugs and pot and everything you can stuff yourself with doesn't set you free. It makes you a slave. Even sex. We can be addicted to porn. We can be addicted to a relationship. We can be addicted to a slot machine, an SUV, a Starbucks product. We can be addicted to our pets. We can be addicted to anything. We can be addicted to our jobs. Those don't set us free. The liberals do not promise us freedom. They promise constriction around the throat like a boa constrictor. Like my choker collar, if somebody were to pull it and go. This is truth. Have a good day, everybody. This is Pacific Ocean 8.